Hello, everyone, and welcome to something different from Love, Death, and Video Games. This time, it's a discussion review of FromSoftware and Bandai Namco's newest sensation, Elden Ring. And joining me is Casey Evans. Pleasure to
Hello,
have you.
nice to have me on. Great talk about Elden Ring. Bandai Namco's and FromSoftware's Elden Ring, as I always forget that Bandai Namco actually make it. But yeah, it's the newest game from the people who make you Dark Souls, and that probably gives you as much as you need to know on what some of the thoughts will have on it.
It's the latest game from the purveyors of pain. I think it's probably the best way to put it. The self-inflicted pain merchants from
Yeah,
software.
from Software games, just subtitled "Hard as balls." This just basically should just be it. Like that's it. Like it's one of those things of just like you just go into them and you're like, I am not ready for this. You think you'll be like, I might actually, I liked the last one. I thought I was decent at it. I've never said that in my life. I think I got a bit better in Bloodborne, but yeah, it's been an experience. That's all I'm gonna say so far. It's been an experience.
Okay, so we will start with the first impressions. It chucks you in at the deep end, like most from software games. Those, as it, the Forest Guardians after the first Sight of Grace, I ran head on
Yeah.
into one of those, and 5 minutes in, already dead.
Well, it's one of those games where it's like it's a bit different to Dark Souls because obviously Dark Souls is like, oh, I'm just going to use the original Dark Souls for an example. It's like you're in an area, here's a boss, figure it out, and they can't really leave the area until after you've beaten him. With Elden Ring, which is quite surprising and obviously is their new kind of direction, it's like you go head on thinking maybe I have to beat this guy, but you find out very quickly that you could just go around most things if you don't feel like you're ready to fight them. And I don't think I fought that guy until about 2 hours in. He still kicks, he still beat me up, but um, it's kind of one of those things where it's like your muscle memory of thinking this is a From Software game is this guy's really important to the first area, and it really isn't that way. And I think that's probably one of the first takeaways you can have from it is it's a Dark Souls game in soul, but it's not in execution at times.
Yeah, it's got the Dark Souls skeleton, but the flesh of the matter is so much more than just a Dark Souls game, and there's a jump button.
There is a jump button. That jump button is magical, except for the fact that it's now involved in fights, and my muscle memory does not include that. So whenever there's an attack that you have to jump over, I just stand there and take it. So it's not the greatest experience in the world. But at the same time, it's great. There's a jump button. There's a horse as well that also double jumps, which is a fun a fun thing that I learned after about half an hour of riding it, and I was like, that makes things so much easier.
I didn't know it double jumped until just now. So
The
that's
horse double jumps.
I knew about the extra like boosted jump you could do at specific points. I didn't know it double jumped. So
No, you
thank
can
you
do
for
you
that.
can do that at any point. Like it just double jumps.
Thank you very much for that. I feel like a fool. I'm like 12 hours into it now.
I was 15 hours in before I figured out that the left trigger allows you to swing the sword on the other side of your horse. So I don't think you should sound like a fool in that regard anyway.
Riding around in a circle trying to hit someone from the right.
Yes. Yes. The most one-handed swordsman in the history of this world, of Limgrave or whatever the Greater World's called. I cannot remember at the top of my head.
So shall we go into first likes and dislikes from, because we're not going to spoil too much. So obviously there are people that haven't played it, and it's meant to honestly be a review. So we'll start with the likes, and I'll be honest, there's a hell of a lot of them.
Yeah, I think there's quite a lot of things. The first thing I'd say is like the vibe. I quite like the vibe of it. Like two of my favorite games of all time, as I mentioned to you off camera. Well, one of them Skyrim, and the music on the overworld. It's so much like a song from Skyrim, and it's a specific one. I think it's called Kind's Grace. I've been looking. I listen to Skyrim music while I'm working, so this is why I'm nerdy on this part. But it sounds like it's ripped straight from Skyrim, which obviously I've heard some people on the internet complain about. I've heard basically like some people say, obviously Dark Souls, it's known for its epic. From Software games, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro are all known for like their epic tunes between each fight, and each area has its own little like theme, and like you go through it. And some people have been like, well, we have this massive open world and it's just one song throughout it. I quite like it, so I'm not really gonna knock that. But the vibe of it is Skyrim, and also to an extent Shadow of the Colossus, I think is probably the way I'd say it. And there's inspirations of both of those in this game, I think, as well as there's other inspirations which I quite like, which I'll go into. It's like my secondary point. But yeah, it's like that vibe of just wandering through a world and just being able to um, explore most of the world. I mean, the fact is that we're going to say like one of the first missions is you go up to a castle and you do Dark Souls things and just go through a castle, but you don't have to go up there. You can explore this massive world that they've made, and you can pretty much go wherever you want in it. And I think that sort of aspect of wandering is both a plus in the sort of column of I like those sorts of games, but also a plus in the column of if you are getting absolutely smacked about by someone right across the place, you can just go and ride your horse for a bit and just calm down. Because that's one of the biggest things about Dark Souls was just that unrelenting, like, I cannot play more of this game until I beat this guy. Whereas this one's like, just walk it off. Just have a little bit of a walk, calm down, get yourself back together, then come back a bit later on. I quite like that about the game.
Yeah, they've expanded on that rinse and repeat, collect souls, level up, find you're still not quite high level enough, rinse and repeat over and over and over and over again. And the open world aspect adds like a ridiculous amount because you might not be high enough level for a specific area, but you can still ride through it and to a certain extent explore without progressing any part of the story, which is actually quite nice. Whereas, like you say, Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, they're all very here is a path with a few shortcuts or diversions, but at the end there is always that end boss at the end, and you cannot progress until you've beaten it. Which is probably what turns a lot of people off to Dark Souls and Soulsborne games. But I think it's probably what also I read somewhere this was supposed to be the most accessible From Software game. 2 hours in, when you've been beaten more than within an inch of your life countless times, accessible probably isn't the word, but I get what they mean because open world appeals to a lot more people than just linear.
Yeah, there's quite a lot more to do, I think. Obviously, I was going into my second point. This is very inspired by, I mean, George R. R. Martin is one of the main writers on it. There's definitely a Lord of the Rings reference in there. If you didn't get that from Elden Ring, I'm just gonna just throw that out there. There's a definite Lord of the Rings reference, heavy Lord of the Rings reference in there. And there's a lot of like Tolkien sort of world building in there, I think, with a lot of like trees are very important in terms of life and stuff, and that's kind of like that's done in a lot of fantasy writing, but it's a bit Tolkien-esque, it's a bit George R. R. Martin-esque. There's influences of Berserk by Kentaro Miura, obviously rest in peace to him, but like, and there's respectful memorials in the game to him because I think there's a lot of the Soulsborne series has been inspired by his works, but there's it seems a lot more overt in this game. I think obviously Bloodborne had its influences, it kind of had a bit sprinkled in. Dark Souls had its influences, kind of had a bit sprinkled in. This one, I'm like, yeah, this is like one of those ones where it's like, this is just dark fantasy straight off the bat, and it kind of has a lot of that influences, and it just kind of feels lived in. You meet random characters like you do in Dark Souls, but they're kind of just in the world, and they've got stuff that they want you to do on another side of the world, and you need to go there, and it kind of back and forth, and a bit of it's fetch questy, a bit of it's the kind of stuff you'd expect from an open world game, but it doesn't ever feel like that because I quite like the world. And I feel like that's the crux of and probably Elden Ring's best feature. I mean, obviously it has your bosses that are hard to beat, that are challenge, has your enemies that kind of are like very various and well designed, and they are great, but I think the world itself is so well designed and how it's set out and how it gets you about the world and everything is kind of that's kind of its best feature is that this world that they've created is so well influenced and so well designed and so just nice to look at. Like just in general, you could just stop at any point in the game and just look at the sky and be like, "It's really good." I'm just gonna hit the screenshot button. Just gonna have that as a background at some point. So yeah, I think it's a great game. I think that part of the game's great as well.
Just going into that a bit more, do you think open world is something From Software will do more of, or do you think this is just the one-off game from them that's sort of Dark Soulsy like that's open world?
I don't know because obviously like they're very varied in their ideas and they change up a lot of things. I mean, Dark Souls 1 or Demon Souls and Dark Souls are very similar games in their conception and their ideas. Then Dark Souls 2 didn't have I forgot his name now. Uh, didn't have the main creator. I cannot remember his name off the top of my head. And I literally just read it about 2 seconds ago, so that's great. But they didn't have him, and they changed it up and were like, it's kind of like an enemy rush, but still as hard as Dark Souls. And Dark Souls 2 is one of the games where I played it for like 10 minutes and I turned it off, and I was like, this is not good. Dark Souls 3 kind of went back to that, but then Bloodborne was like a lot more aggressive, a lot more faster play style, a lot more um, it had a lot more movement based, and that was kind of what that was their sort of step forward on that. And then they went to Sekiro, where they were like, okay, we're not just going to be stuck on the floor now. You can go on rooftops, you can jump behind people, you can like swing around and do all this sort of stuff. And that's kind of like they've been kind of over time expanding the movement and the size and span of their games. And I think that this is kind of like the culmination of it. And whether they go back to being like, as they have done in the past, where they go back to like, this is what we're good at, this is what people like, we can make a really good game around this concept, is probably the case because I don't know how big an undertaking Elden Ring was. I think it's going to be a massive one because that, as I said, it's a massive game. It's been compared to Zelda Breath of the Wild for a reason because that is also a massive game. But I'd like them to do it. I think it's a really good world. I mean, obviously, I'm still, as I think we said before, we're not going to spoil much of the game because we haven't got through that much of the game. Like, I know I'm now kind of calling you out to your own listeners here, Billy, but we're both stuck in the first area, like of the actual like main story. But in terms of that, like I said before, you can go out into the world, you can explore the world. You don't have to. You're not just stuck in like. If we'd only played 2 levels of Dark Souls, I don't think I could say I could give a really big, comprehensive review of it. But with Elden Ring, I can say I have seen quite a lot of it, despite the fact that I am not that far through the story, and I think that's something that's admirable about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no illusions that this is going to take me a hell of a long time to get anywhere near finished. But like you said, this isn't like Dark Souls where if I'm stuck on boss 2, then that's it. I've not. I'm about halfway through that Stormvale Castle, but I've been to one end of the map and back again. I've done not side questy bits, but sort of off my own, trying to find things I've seen. Like I mentioned to you, I think it's something like the Royal Return Armor or something, which is like a skeletal set, which is really cool, especially because my character's eyes are bright red. It looks amazing. But not every game is 100%. Even the amount of 10 out of 10s it's been given. Not every game is 100%, and I'm discounting anything by anybody that says it's too hard because that's the main point of these games. You buy a From Software game for the challenge and the humiliation alone. Not, I think this is going to be quite an easy game, quite a relaxing Sunday afternoon game. So, is there anything about this game you're not a fan of that isn't the difficulty?
See, it's not something that I'm not a fan of, per se, because I think, as I said to you, I think it's cognitive dissonance, and I might be using the phrase cognitive dissonance in the wrong way there, but it's because it's such an amazing open world. So I'm so used to like games where you just go into like random spots and you find cool items and stuff. because it's still a Dark Souls game, they're not they don't want to be. I mean, this is the thing that they don't want to be as forthcoming with the items. So I'll explore around this area and I'll be like, oh, there's definitely a secret here. And then you get to there and there's like a message saying, haha, you thought the exact same I did. Here we go. And I'd be like, God damn it, I've just wasted like 5 minutes of my time. But the problem is like obviously that kind of, I mean, you explore the world and it's great and everything, but it's like that sort of just getting through my mindset of, I'm not go and that constant disappointment of I'm not going to find an item everywhere I go because that's the thing I think is that they've gone into a genre that's not their genre, but they're still trying to keep the spirit of the game that they have. And the problem is because there's so many examples of like games where it's abundant and there's so many things to look like, not like obviously story quest lines and all that stuff, that's great, but like so many little things to find, like, oh, here's a new weapon, here's some crafting stuff. And the thing is, I think also the crafting stuff is because the game doesn't particularly explain to you what the crafting stuff does explicitly, unless I've missed that because it's a Dark Souls game and that's very easy to miss. That you kind of get into the point of, well, I've just found another, what is it, flower, and I don't know what this flower does, and that seems to be just a waste of my time. But then sometimes you find like a really cool dungeon or something. But it's just like I think, as I said, I think it's a problem more with me than the game. I think it's just that if someone steps into it thinking it's going to be like every other open world game where there's every single corner of the map is crammed with cool stuff to find and cool weapons and cool armor, and you're going to be able to upgrade constantly and do all this sort of stuff for it, that's not what you're going to get from this game, and that's not where they've compromised on what their values are as a game. What they've compromised on is like they've given you a massive open world, but it is still a Dark Souls game. So it's still a Soulsborne game. So you're gonna have to still survive on the bare minimum with not a lot of armor, finding not a lot of good weapons, and just kind of get through it that way. And I think they've kind of mitigated that slightly, but it's just, again, I think it's just me coming down to the level in that regard.
Yeah, it's that Ubisoft problem. I think you look at every Ubisoft sandbox map and it's top to bottom things to do, and people coming from even other open world games, they drop a hell of a lot of ammo or crafting items. It doesn't happen that much here. You know, if you run out of arrows, you're not going to pick up. You might pick up 3 or 4. You're not going to pick up 100 again. So it's trying to. There is a lot of trial and error involved in it, and I get that some people don't like that. There's a lot of. It's almost like extra reading that needs to go into it, which is probably. It's not a complaint. It just doesn't fit with how I play video games. I don't want to sit and read for 25 minutes every time I pick something up. And it touches on that thing with you and the flowers and the crafting and how you don't know what things do, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think if you want to get the most out of the game, you have to do all aspects of it, be it charging head on into something and swinging for dear life, or picking stuff up and working out what they do to make your character better.
Yeah, I think in that regard, yeah, and I also think that there is also and this hasn't been much of a problem now, but I can see it being a problem at some point. Is because obviously Dark Souls, and I keep saying Dark Souls, I mean any Souls game in that regard, but like you get given an item or you find a random item, and the thing is it's like I specifically know where this item needs to go because I remember the conversation and I remember the area that I was in of the person who mentioned it. So you just like go and find the bonfire, get back, there I am. And I think with this game, there is just a case of I found something and I was like, someone has said this and I know where it needs to go. Like, I know it needs to go to someone in particular. Where was that person on this vast map that I have explored? Where did it go? But yeah, it is one of those things where I think it's just and I think they have tried to meet in the middle a bit. I think they have done a few explanations of things that they even added a kind of what was reasonably easy tutorial area, which was something I don't think they've really done before. I think in most of the games they just kind of go figure it out. Like they go, here's a sword, here's a shield, that thing's there, fight it, you'll win eventually. You'll figure it out. With this area, they were like, just drop down this hole. There's a tutorial. We'll show you how to swing. We'll show you how to block. We'll tell you how to parry. We'll tell you there's a jump button. We'll tell you there's a double jump button for your horse. We'll tell you they didn't tell you that in the tutorial. Don't worry about it. You didn't miss that much. They'll tell you how to evade, and then like they've kind of, I think that's where they've tried to compromise and meet in the middle. But yeah, I think obviously it's great. It's fantastic. I think there is the obvious teething points are where they have definitely gone out of their comfort zone, and it's just those small little details which kind of have like they've not made hundreds of open world games, so they don't know how to fully adapt to it. But in general, they've done a really good job of it. And the fact is, of it's probably easily one of my favorite games I've played in a while, and I think it's up there with Bloodborne in terms of one of my favorite like worlds in a Dark Souls game. Dark Souls 3 is probably like somewhere around there, but I do really like just the as I said, the Shadow of the Colossus vibes gets me in the nostalgia very deeply. So
Yeah, it's that sort of crumbling, archaic structure all around that sort of does it. And well, that's the thing. It's such a massive map, but I don't know about you, but I've not had, what do they call it, open world fatigue, where I've had it in Red Dead Redemption 2, where you just feel like it's the same stuff repeated and you go again and again and again and again. But the thing is, because of the design and the lands between, they can make every sort of section different. So all you have to do is cross into a threshold, and it's completely different to 10 steps back, which is such a really cool way to do something so you don't get tired. Say you have to go from one end of the map to the other for something, or you want to do that of your own free will. There's about 5 or 6 different areas to go through, which is pretty cool.
yeah, unless you find, oh yeah, and also in this game, I'm just gonna do this as a tip for everyone who's probably listening, and this is not a spoiler, but they've made chests scary again, which is fun. Because obviously, like in Dark Souls, they had the weird little demons that kind of came out and ate you. In Bloodborne, they kind of did away with that, and they like every chest you went up to, you kind of were expecting it, but they're like, oh, yeah, they're all fine. This one, some of them teleport you to in the middle of the map to a cave where you don't know where you are, and you're just surrounded by enemies who are much stronger than you, and you just have to run screaming. And when you find one of them, it's not fun because you can't escape it because you can't fast travel. Well, there's a fast travel system. You can't fast travel underground. Um, so yeah, that was when that happened to me. I was like, sweet, this is not fun.
I've not had that one either, but I've you put the fear of God in me with that now. I'm gonna be wary of everything I open from here, like for the foreseeable future. It's gonna be okay. It's glowing. There could be something really cool in there. On the other hand, I could die, which I think is probably a good mantra to take into any Souls game. It
Oh
looks
yeah, just
cool, it shines, but I could die.
look around every corner. Do not both trust and do not trust the messages that people leave you because sometimes they're being really helpful. Other times they're trying to do you over, and other times they're just putting one next to a tortoise and saying it's a dog, which is just one of my favorite ongoing jokes in Elden Ring so far. If you go past any animal, there's just a little message next to it that just goes dog question mark. It's just like I don't know why it just really cracks me up whenever I see it. But yeah, there's honestly it's one of those games where it's like there's so much cool things to find and so much cool things to discover, and you're like there just like but at the end, every time it's like, oh, this is really cool, but it's probably 30 steps away from something that can absolutely murder me. And that's kind of like how Dark Souls games have been really. It's like, I'll stop to admire the scenery, and then you just hear like a screaming yell behind you, and you're like, oh, that guy's coming to kill me. Sweet. Let's run. So, yeah, in that regard, it's still very much got the heart of a Soulsborne game.
It's yeah, it's weird because you end up with Soulsborne PTSD. There's a point in Stormvale Castle where there's a path that leads up a dark staircase, and it's constantly okay. There's probably something up here, but there's also probably something that can kill me. There's nothing up there, but it's just a longish staircase in the dark. So anything at any point could come out and kill me. There's a point where you need to go into this room to get the key to progress. You open the door slams behind you. There's some sort of maniacal laugh, and then you die because you're sat there in a puddle of your own making and haven't got the reaction times to block this attack that comes from behind. It's absolutely terrifying.
It's just one of those ones. Like I think I was talking to you off camera. Like you're going through the game. You're on horseback, so you think you're invincible to all of life's problems. Which you're not. If you get stun locked on a horse, that's just not fun in any way, shape, or form. But you're riding along, and in one of the areas, there's like a little dog T-Rexy thing. I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. Dog T-Rex explains it perfectly well. But it kind of, I was like, oh yeah, I'll just swing at it and carry on because I'm going somewhere. And then I swung at it, thought I was at the place, and then I realized I'm at the place I need to be. And there's a site of there's a bonfire, site of grace, lantern. The point of anyway, the point of saving in Elden Ring, and I was like, all right, I need to go here now. And this thing was still following me, and I ignited it. Obviously, realized I wasn't safe. It was coming around the corner. I then pressed triangle again. It read the message that was next to it telling me that this was a site of grace, and I was like, I really don't need this. And at this point, you know in those dinosaur movies where the T-Rex comes through the window but gets stuck because it's too big? That exact thing happened to me, and I was screaming my head off as I'm just trying to press to get this bonfire just so I can sit down and just end it and just do what I'm doing. And it's one of those ones where it's just like, like in games you can get to the point where the bosses are really hard, and that's it. But like getting to the boss is kind of like occasionally you'll die, but in general it's just kind of like it depends on the difficulty you decide to make. In Dark Souls, in Soulsborne, in Bloodborne, whatever, everything can kill you, and that's the thing that scares me the most. Out of anywhere whatsoever, no matter what happens, you can find something that will absolutely murder you, even if it's in the easiest area possible, because they'll just get the right amount of hits in, they'll stagger you, they'll catch you unawares, they'll do whatever, and you'll just be there like, I am in complete and utter terror right now of what I'm about to come up against the next time. But the problem is the next time you know not to do that. And that's the thing with what you said, like people around a corner, you know that guy's around the corner, or you know that person's gonna lock the door, so you're ready for it, and you know that's gonna happen again, so you're not as completely off guard. And I think that's kind of how it does it. It shocks you into learning a lot of the time, like not to hit the giant thing that probably can kill you quite easily, and I should definitely not have hit, and you not running headfirst into the thing that definitely looks like a boss within 5 minutes, which I still don't get why you did that.
I'd spent 45 minutes making my character. I was eager, I was keen, and in hindsight, it was the most stupid thing in the world. At this point, all I'd killed was the eagles sat on the rocks. I hadn't done anything properly. So I just went, yeah, it's the first area. It can't be that difficult. Oh no, here we go. And I just perished. But like you said, it's been compared to Breath of the Wild. And that was a game that brought the genre of open world forward. I think this is going to do something similar with, well, with open world again. I think it's going to make it, because even with Breath of the Wild, there was open world fatigue. After a while, it was, yeah, okay, I've seen this all before. You know, the lack of any mini map, you've got a compass system and that's it. You can go north, south, east, and west. You can place map markers, but that's it. You can't really tell where you're going unless you know. I'm just it's made me excited for the next one. And I'm only about 15 hours into this one.
Yeah, my mate keeps saying that when I'm playing with him. He's always like, "When's Elden Ring 2 coming out?" And I'm like, you've not finished Elden Ring 1. You keep asking for Bloodborne 2. Like, stop going on about Elden Ring 2. And I think, yeah, I think the thing is the open world. I don't know if it's truly going to be really a step forward. I think the open world genre is very stuck in its ways of here is a open world, here is points to find out more stuff on the open world, here is the outposts, here are the main story checkpoints, and here's a load of random stuff to do in them. And I think that's kind of like the formula that's worked. It's the formula that still works to this day on Ubisoft games, on, I mean, I was going to say on Ubisoft games, and then I was going to go and another Ubisoft game and another. It's just basically all the Ubisoft games are open world, but it's a formula that works, and it's something that they take up, and it's something that they've kind of pioneered as the very easy way to make a game that people kind of enjoy, and then they add that little twist that makes people pick your game other than like that. So like Dying Light, pretty much similar to an Ubisoft game, but you do parkour and you fight zombies. Sweet, sounds pretty cool. I like the sound of that. That'll be my open world game for the next 6 months. But I think like this one has kind of gone, right, we've looked what they're doing. We don't particularly like that. We like doing our own thing. And I think Zelda was a lot of that as well. Here's our take on it. And in that regard, I think what they've done is they've taken a very good game concept and taken it to open world instead of going, here's the bare bones of an open world game. Now let's make something slightly different so we look different to the other open world game. They've gone, here's Elden Ring, or here's a Soulsborne game, here's a Zelda game. We're going to expand it in an open world, but we're going to make it sure that every single piece that we make of this open world adheres to the key concepts that we had for the original idea that we had here. And I think that is the way that it'll change. I think that's the way that the game industry needs to take it from now on, because, not going to lie, I'm kind of sick of Assassin's Creed right now. I was playing Valhalla before I played this, and I was kind of like, this is an 100-hour game, by the way. Like, I looked it up, and I was like, how long is this game? It's 100 hours. How they got 100 hours worth of content out of a game where you just run around and stab people in the neck? I don't know. I remember when Assassin's Creed games were 16 hours at the most. And I sound like a boomer. I know I do. But I remember. But it's kind of like, it's just basically they've gone, here's this thing that was really good, and we've expanded it massively out of its scale, but we haven't kept any of the concepts in that made the first game good. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like with Elden Ring and with Zelda and with those sorts of games, they have taken what they know well, and they've made sure that every single piece of the game that they make adheres to that same concept that they had when it was just a smaller scale game.
Yeah, it's a massive iteration of everything FromSoftware had with the original Dark Souls game. But there's the freedom to choose your own way to go about it. It isn't, okay, look, here's a corridor. We're going to keep pushing you down it until you eventually die. And like you say, with Assassin's Creed, they've expanded it. They've made it a lot bigger, but they've diluted it to the point where it's just, yeah, okay, cool. What's the next one going to be? Is it going to be, astronauts? And but this
They're
is
gonna they're gonna Fast and Furious 9 Assassin's Creed and just
I'm
take
waiting
it to
for it.
space.
It's happening. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. There'll be an assassination where you've got to push someone out of an airlock or something. It's just gonna happen at this point. But Elden Ring, they've expanded. They've made it so much bigger than any Soulsborne game, but it's still as rich and jam packed with things that will kill you given the slightest chance as any Soulsborne game, which is probably why it's been given 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10. And unless something else is spectacularly incredible, I'm already earmarking it for my game of the year.
Yeah, I think it's definitely up there. I'm trying to think what else came out this year. I mean,
Forbidden West is probably, once I've played it and reviewed it properly, that'll be quite tight. I've seen something about the new God of War's meant to be out in June.
yeah, I think God of War's meant to be out in June. That was the one I was trying to think of. But yeah, I think it'll be between. Probably between those three. Um, and Xbox will still be doing Game Pass as always. I mean, I'm saying this as someone who has an Xbox as well, so like it's kind of like they've not really done much. Halo Infinite was fun, but again, they just went open world, but at times it becomes Halo. So, um, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's definitely set itself apart. I thought the thing was when I saw the reviews, I was like, they're definitely going to give it a 9. They'll probably give it an 8 or 9. It's a Dark Souls game. Reviewers like Dark Souls games. They always give them high ratings, but like definitely think that kind of when I was like everything's 10, I was like this is probably something else. Like I wasn't going to buy it straight away because obviously I've probably hinted to this throughout this call. I'm not very good at these games at all. Uh, and I was like, I'll wait, I'll play Horizon, I'll play Horizon Forbidden West. But then I saw the reviews, I saw a couple of like gameplay trailers and stuff, and I was like, this kind of looks like it would be something special. And ever since I've played it, that's been confirmed to me.
Yeah, I had it pre-ordered, and I got a mate of mine it for Christmas as well, and I completely put it to the back of my mind because I didn't want any spoilers. I didn't want to see anything. I didn't want to read anything. And then I was just scrolling through Twitter, and I saw the advert, 10 out of 10 from IGN and Tech Radar and all those places. It's like, okay. Well, weeks ago, I'm very, very excited. And then I had to work all weekend when it came out. I had like 45 minutes with it Friday night before football. And then that was it until Tuesday. I was like, I had to stay off Twitter because it was killing me seeing everyone love it. And it's like, this is like, I imagine how people felt if they missed out on the moon landing. Like, I have this game, I've played 45 minutes, but I've not fully experienced it on release with everyone else. And I think if anyone's umming and ahhing over it,
Yeah,
it's a lot of money to spend on something if you don't like it already. But beg, borrow, or steal from anyone that you know that has it to try and play it to see if you like it.
just like to say that the this podcast does not condone anyone stealing. It
No,
is a
please,
crime.
please don't steal because that's wrong. But borrow, beg. I would say watch like let's plays, but again, I don't think that gives you a full experience of a Soulsborne.
No, I think the best analogy you were looking for was probably like you were able to watch Star Wars on opening day, and then you had to leave after 45 minutes as they were just like they just left Tatooine. Like you'd be like, sweet, I'm very invested in this right now, and now I absolutely can't do anything about it. Sweet, so I'm just gonna go and go about my day, and I'll watch it again next week. How would you survive that? How would any human survive that? And imagine now how anyone would survive that with Twitter. It would be ridiculous. Um, and obviously, it's one of those things where I'm not going to say go on. If you think that you are going to get annoyed at a game that is very hard and doesn't ever seem to relent on how hard it is, I would say don't buy it right now. Wait till it drops in price. Wait till you think that you maybe are in a better better place in gaming, like you're ready to take on a challenging game. If you want like a nice sit down game, I've had a hard day at work, I'm gonna sit down and play 2 hours of a game and just chill. This is not the game that I'd recommend to do it. I'd go and there's a number of other games, probably Horizon, there's probably other ones which are kind of a bit more chill. Like I have never been more. I have a stressful day at work, and I go on this, and I'm like, they're just gripping the controller. Like this is so much worse. But if you are invested in fantasy games, if you really like the world of the fantasy worlds of like Lord of the Rings, uh, Game of Thrones, as I mentioned before, Berserk. If you like games like Skyrim at times, but you kind of wanted it to be a bit more difficult, if you like games like Shadow of the Colossus but want it to be more difficult, pick it up, give it a try, and embrace the learning curve is probably the way to put it. That's the thing. Like, you're gonna get beaten. Like, unless you are insanely good at video games, which I am definitely not, and from from Billy's statements as well, I don't think he is either. Um, you're gonna die, and you're gonna die quite a lot. But at the end of the day, when you get past that boss, you get past that point that you've just been stuck at for ages, you will feel such like a feeling of pure relief, and it's unlike many other games that you kind of get that. I think only Mario Kart, when you're playing against friends, can really get that point of just pure victory. It's kind of the way I can put it.
Yeah, for anyone that's seen Friends, when Rachel completes the crossword on her own, and there's no one there to celebrate with, that's kind of the experience being that first boss. Is like, oh, there's no one here to celebrate with. What do I do? Take to Twitter, and everyone will flock to you because there. I know people that still haven't beaten that first boss, but stick with it because once you get through certain blocked off points, it opens what you thought was already massive into a different beast. I think that's probably a good place to leave it without wanting to spoil any more.
Yeah, I think that's a bit well-rounded review of what we've played so far.
Well, thanks for joining me, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
No problem. I'm always open to discuss games I like and games that cause me pain. So those two don't have to be mutually exclusive. So that's always great.
So yeah, you can follow Casey on Twitter at Casey_Evans_. You can follow me at Bandrews97 and also on YouTube. But this has been Love, Death, and Video Games. I've been Billy, he's been Casey, and we've been talking about Elden Ring.